Last Thursday, Crema, the developers of Temtem, released alpha version 0.3, adding tons of new features players have been waiting months for. With Temtem releasing next January, there has never been a better time to get into the game. So, in this video, I will be covering everything new in Temtem, but to keep it spoiler free, and because everything isn't necessarily discovered yet, I'll make a separate video showing every new Temtem, so make sure to subscribe if you're interested in that. Anyways, let's get right into it because there's a lot to unpack here. So, to start it off, Co-op is here and players are now able to join each other in a party. And while they're in this party, instead of each player having 6 Temtems, both will have 3 just to keep some challenge while questing. It'd be kind of overpowered if they had 12. Now the entire campaign can be played in co-op. If the players in the party join at different points of the campaign, it'll automatically be set to the player with less progress. Now I know I was a little bit confused when I heard this the first time. So let's say a veteran got his friend in alpha code and they wanted to play together. So what would happen is the veteran would go back to where the new player, his friend, is at in the story and they would play together like that. It's also good to note that a party can only be formed if the players are near each other. This is to avoid some weird interactions happening, like let's say they're both on different islands and one of them gets into a battle, it wouldn't just teleport them to that island. But yeah, now you can play with your friends throughout the story mode. I think it's going to be pretty cool to try to line up some combos and try to mix and match each other's Temtem to just have a fun time and go throughout the story. So, moving on, we now have competitive mode. I know a lot of players have been waiting for this feature and it'll for sure be a big part of the endgame. So now when battling other players, they can choose between casual mode, which is like a standard 6 versus 6, or competitive. So now how competitive battles work is it requires more than 6 Temtem. I don't know the specific number yet, but players will have to configure this in their Tendeck. When they finally find a match, they'll go into a pick and ban phase, kind of like you would see in League of Legends ranked mode. Players will take turns banning each other's Temtem until both are down to 5. So instead of it being in the casual 6 versus 6, it'd be 5v5 in competitive mode. Now it is important to keep in mind here that right now there's only 2 versus 2, so 2 players on either team that can play competitive. So I was thinking it might be a cool idea if they added 1 versus 1 competitive mode, but obviously it's not necessary. They have a lot bigger fish to fry. Is that the saying? But yeah, there's already so much strategy in this game compared to other competitors, but this is just going to take it over the level and add so much depth to the endgame. I'm really hyped about this. Since this patch is so big, we have another big feature. There's just so much stuff getting added to the game. Now obviously, we all know that Temtem's an MMO, so finally we have the friend system coming into place. So now, players will be able to add up to 50 players onto their friends list. You'll also be able to add up to 3 favorited players, which makes it so your server connections are prioritized. Meaning, if you're just vibing somewhere, you might come across your friend, and it's just a nice little feature that adds a little bit of depth to the game. Now, it's important to note that there is no option to look up friends yet, but they're planning on adding it soon. We can probably see this coming out with early access or the stress test. But if you do have access to the alpha, right now the only way to add them is to be close to them inside the game. Another little feature is they have added sitting, so if you see a bench, you can now interact with it to sit on it. And if there's enough room on the seat while you're sitting, you can move around positions, kind of like you see in GTA or another game. It's nice to note that while you are sitting, you can still use emotes. Another cool item we have being added is the full map, which is actually an item inside the game that you'll have to collect before using. It can be opened on keyboard by pressing M, and it displays everything in the current area around you. And let's say, for example, you're in a store and you want to go up and down a floor, you're able to do that as well. We also have some nice little additions to the character creation menu. For example, players are now able to choose their pronouns like him, her, or now them. Now this is actually important because NPCs in the game will now refer to you as that pronoun. Also in the character creation menu, there's a new tab that allows you to choose your voice type. Now I can't confirm this, but I'm assuming it's going to be like high pitch and low pitch voice, whatever you choose. I think it would be kind of funny to see like someone's character sounding like Alvin and the Chipmunk if the pitch goes that high. I doubt it does though. And the last addition to the character creation menu is they added more face types. So yeah, just another little cool feature there. Another pretty cool one is the game now has tutorials. Now it is said that this is meant to be as unobstructive as possible, so it appears a notification on the top left of the screen with a summary saying what it's trying to get across. If you do want to learn more about that subject, whatever they're talking about, you're able to click on it and it'll show more details about that. This one's probably one of the most important features on here gameplay wise. So now players will have these hidden level caps where you can't get a specific Temtem above a certain level while you capture it. The way to increase this level cap though is by capturing more Temtem, so over time that'll go up and you'll be able to capture more at a higher level. Now it is important to note you can get above that level cap system if you have someone trade with you, and if you do capture a Temtem that's a higher level than your cap, it will just automatically go to the box system and you won't be able to access it until you're above that threshold. Next on our improvements list we have the Tendeck, which gets a ton of changes. The first one being that the Temtem can now be sorted and filtered. I'm assuming this is going to be like type or their alphabetical order and the name, etc. It's important to know that this is only a temporal view, so it won't actually change the order in which the Temtem are stored. Also, the Tendeck now features a sorting system. You can mark each Temtem with one of the available marks, which just adds a little bit more organization options. They will also now display gear, gender, level, and the mark you put on them. And when you capture a new Temtem, it will display as a notification in the Tendeck when you get it. Another organization feature they added was to the backpack, which added a recent pocket, which will feature recently obtained and used items that you used throughout the game. Alright, so I'm not even like a quarter of the way through this patch notes, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have like this rapid fire mode where I'm just going to list off without saying what I think about the changes. There's a new item that will display egg timers, but first you'll have to find it. They added a new PvP UI that shows the rivals' HP and stamina percentages. You can also now see your opponent's name and avatar while battling them. There's now Tamer portraits to all UIs where they weren't displayed before, so Tamer info, trade, and interactions, etc. There are 29 new captural Temtem, which I'll display in the next video, and 29 new traits, 34 new techniques, and 35 new technique animations for the previously available ones. Non-unique gear can now be sold in shops. Added a setting where you can disable the in-game quest tracker or set it to dynamic where it would actually appear when something changes in the quest. Luma Temtem, which is like this game's equivalent to Shinies, will now have a special audio and visual effect when you actually enter battle with them. Untamed Temtem will now display a mini animation when being encountered for the first time. Temtem that you just officially captured will display an icon next to their name in the Tendecks. Luma Temtem will now display a special icon for most UIs. The battle UI buttons now have a more distinguished visual aid when selected. Some traits have been improved to represent their activation during the turn better. You can now surrender in PvP battles. Capture UI will now display more info for the untamed Temtem, like trait and fertility. The game now contains a notification center, so you don't have to go through and it's all organized on one list with all your notifications. The targeting system while in combat on enemies have been improved, since some people were having trouble targeting them in 0.2. Status conditions are now shown on the overworld squad UI. There's new interact options in this interact UI. Starters and other special given Temtem will now display their information, and you can also now add a nickname to them. Resetting your character will now maintain your Tamer ID instead of generating a new one. Resetting your character will give you the opportunity to reuse the same name. The old name you had will be removed so someone else can use it if they want. The Free Tem and Breeding Center will now display a custom icon on the minimap. And finally, for the improvements, they improved the selected item UI while in battle. Alright, so now that we have improvements done, we're going to get into balance changes. Probably the biggest one for balance is the overall level cap is now increased to 48. If you didn't know, before it was actually 39, so that's 9 more levels increased, which is pretty nice, just more things to do overall in the game. Resting will now grant a stamina bonus based on the Temtem's stamina stat. After a Temtem overexerts, he won't be able to use any techniques, so he's being forced to swap or rest. XP gained from Untamed Temtem battles have been increased by 33%. Burning a fire-type Temtem will now remove the cold and freeze status, even though the burn doesn't apply due to the immunity. Now there are so many changes to the balance of the Temtem, so I think I'm going to highlight over the most important things, but there's so many little details that they changed, it's not really worth going in depth for all of them. But if you do want to know every single change that happened to the balance of them, I'll leave a link to the actual patch notes in the description below. So for Fomu, Ice Shuriken, Lullaby, and Sharp Rain have been added as an egg technique. Raber's male gender rate has been reduced from 100% to 85%, along with Rampage being added as another egg technique for Raber. 4 of the techniques for lowly, which are Nimble, Photosynthesis, Bark Shield, and Allergenic Spread, has all had their levels increased from when they learn it. And for Calibus, his base HP, attack, and special defense have all been increased, but his stamina has been decreased. I know it's not that major of a change, but there's like an entire church Discord server devoted to this guy, so I had to like leave it in. Pig now has Head Charge as an egg technique. Alright, so that's like the major changes for the Temtems, so now we're going to move into techniques. So, first off, Aquatic Whirlwind has their stamina cost increased from 25 to 29. Rampage's damage have been increased from 60 to 65. They also increased Rampage's stamina cost from 24 to 26, and changed it from a melee type to an earth type. Alright, so now that we're done with the balancing section of the video, I'm just going to do like I did with the balancing, where I just summarize the key bug fixes that they have done. So, starting off the fixes, the first one we have is when they fix some occasions where a Temtem could disappear visually from a squad after moving it from the Tendeck. You can also no longer get stuck in the dojo grass. Also fix speed ties not working correctly after swapping a Temtem. But yeah, there are so many. There's at least like 30 bug fixes here, so going over all of them would just be a chore, and I'm sure like some of them are like really random that only like 2 or 3 people experience and they decided to report it. But I'll say it again, if you want to go over the full patch notes of some things I skipped over, it will be in the description below. I hope you enjoyed the video. I plan on making videos in like 3-day intervals, just to keep like the quality and quantity ratio at a good level, you know? If you have any ideas of what videos I can make that are Temtem related, leave it in the comment section below. Hopefully everything, all the new Temtem and everything in the new island would be discovered by the time the 3 days is up, so I can, you know, make the video. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say about that. Right now it's more of like a waiting game until early access or the stress test gets released so I can get my hands on it. So if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to try to do an end screen, but I don't know if it's going to work. So if you see like a black screen or whatever I do, just ignore it.